For a while, movie to video game adaptations and vice versa have had something of a negative reputation. However, in recent years, that notion has begun to change for the better. It would seem that simply slapping IP on a product and calling it finished is no longer the norm, but rather, directors and developers alike take the time to create something more in line with the source material. That's why I find it a little surprising that one of the more recent examples has had little attention brought after release. I'm Nash from Off the Shelf Media, and today we're taking a look at Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Released on December 8th in 2024 for PC, this game felt like it had a ton of hype around it, and then that was sort of it. The common consensus that I saw was that the game was good, though. That's pretty much everything I had heard about it. For disclosure, I was given this game as a gift by a family member, so while I technically did not pay for it, this video is in no way tied to or sponsored by any publishers or developers or anyone. This is simply a review, and one that we felt we needed to make because it feels like there's sort of a content chasm for what is described as a good final product. So we're focusing on why there isn't much talk about it since release. And it really isn't because it's a bad game. Like, if you remember, our Biomutant article touched on this same exact subject, except it kind of made sense why the hype turned into silence, because there wasn't a lot to write home about it. But this game is good. It's very FPS driven. It's made by Machine Games, who is not Bethesda, but I think is owned by ZeniMax, which is it's the parent company of Bethesda and Machine Games. So Machine Games is most famous for making the recent Wolfenstein video games, which are all really good, very action-packed. And that's kind of, if you look online about this game, I guarantee you'll come across somebody that describes this game as Indiana Jones Wolfenstein. Because it kind of does feel like that. It's not entirely inaccurate, but it's sort of a lazy description. It's the quickest way to accurately describe it. The combat is probably the most familiar aspect of that. So for basic movement here, it feels very heavy and weighted. Exactly like it does in Wolfenstein, your character feels like a giant person, and here it feels like, in a good way, it feels like you're Dr. Jones in 1938 whenever you're fighting or climbing stuff. There's a certain amount of weight, not to like just literally how slow your movements go, things like that, but how quickly they exhaust you, which is kind of funny because it's typically not the take of most video games. You know, usually you get a ridiculous amount of stamina. Here, your stamina certainly increases as the game progresses and you level up, but you never feel like you can run a mile. You got Dr. Jones, always feels kind of sluggish, but accurately so in a way that's good. It's good because it ties it into that kind of realism that the movies go for. It makes it feel like you are literally Dr. Jones because of that added weight. And because it's pretty familiar to the Wolfenstein games, it means it's pretty easy to pick up. I think a lot of people, the controls aren't going to be an issue. They're not that complicated. They feel a little dumbed down, but it doesn't feel like you're missing anything. Like, one big thing for me is when you turn the key to open a door. It might seem kind of useless, but it adds a lot of weight, and it puts sort of an emphasis on the things you pick up in the game, because that inventory that you have, while it's a good system and it's not difficult to find stuff, it's very inconvenient to use during combat. That kind of makes sense because you've got a satchel filled with archaeological artifacts and a bunch of notes and clues you found out. It'd be a little ridiculous for you to go ruffling through that to find a weapon to use and for that to all be fluid. So it kind of makes sense. They don't really want you to be going in your inventory all the time to do everything. It does a lot of prompts for you. Like, when it tells you to get the key, it usually just says, click this button and the key's in your hand. It doesn't say look for the key in your inventory. So it feels natural, right? Like, there's an amount of anticipated motion in that, yeah, all right, Dr. Jones knows he's going to have to use this key to open the door. So boom, there you go. But having you click that button and physically move the joystick to open it baby steps you into the weight of all your actions in the game. And I think it does it very well because it doesn't take a lot of time. It's not inconvenient. But it also sort of leads into the fact that this isn't a gun-blazing game. It sort of encourages the opposite, which makes sense, which is kind of the opposite of Wolfenstein, although that you can, quote-unquote, sneak in Wolfenstein. I don't know anybody who actually does, and I don't think that's really how those games are meant to be played. There's certain elements where you kind of have to, but it's like, no, you're doing Wolfenstein, you're doing guns ablaze, running into the rooms and just unloading. Dr. Jones does not have that approach. So it pushes you towards the stealth element, but that is sort of a one hand washes the other, where when you're sneaking around, avoiding bad guys, because they're going to be everywhere in rooms and stuff that you have to get to, or there'll be items you can pick up, it encourages you to search the perimeter of the room and work your way in. So it literally is sort of guiding the player to self-discovery. There are ways where it can be hand-holdy when you find like certain books that unlock the locations of things, but that's sort of an optional thing, and it feels well earned once you get those books, if that makes sense. I don't think anybody enjoys collecting all those collectibles and they never give you anything. Here, they actually do give you a little bit of experience. They give you context for the story at large, or they're just funny because they'll be like, oh, this is from Napoleon doing whatever back in blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, okay, cool, that's fun. The other thing is you can't really carry weapons in this. So pretty much you have outfits, which you don't necessarily have a lot, but you have outfits that give you different options with interacting with enemies and going into different locations. And each outfit has one weapon that you can repair. For Indiana Jones' classic outfit, you get his revolver. A lot of the other outfits, they come with like a melee weapon that they can break, and you'll find repair kits and you can repair it. Most of the other weapons, and honestly, most of the weapons that you probably use, are things you can just pick up, like brooms and shovels and candlesticks. And they have very limited health. You can't really get into these massive fights with these items because they very quickly break. You don't carry extra ammo for any of the weapons you pick up, only your revolver, and not a lot of ammo. So they really don't encourage this guns ablaze tactic. You can try to do it, and I have done it to some amount of success, but it doesn't feel right. Your health drops very quickly when you get shot. Duh. So, again, it's pushing you to be more like Dr. Jones without necessarily forcing you, so it all feels very natural. It's very well-rounded in that regard. Feels like you are playing as Dr. Jones in the game, as if you were watching a movie just from his perspective. Because almost the entire thing is first person, except when you do climbing and some animations in the videos. But for like 95% of all the playtime, it is first person. And it's a different sort of storytelling mechanic. That's kind of why, I guess, it's longer than a movie. You're not third person. It's not all about just, oh, look, Indiana Jones stuff. Because most of the time you can't even see Indiana Jones. Like, you do have the whip, too, as a weapon, I think all the time. And it's useful, but it never feels like, okay, you can't just go into a room and just start whipping everybody. That never feels right, because you run out of stamina. It feels organic without feeling gimmicky, right? That's, I think, a big issue that a lot of games in the past had that were movie adaptations, is they sort of use these gimmicky things like, look, remember this? That thing's in the movie. Here it feels a bit more natural, mainly, in my experience, using the whip to climb. It can come in handy in combat when you need it to sort of save the day, but it feels very natural, which is very important when it comes to the story, too, because it does move like a movie plot, but an Indiana Jones plot that's more like Raiders of the Lost Ark than it is the other movies, if that makes sense. The sci-fi stuff isn't explosive in your face. There isn't really a ton of it, because this game also takes place before The Last Crusade movie with Sean Connery. So it's in between Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade. And part of that feel of the movie, too, is all the characters you meet, they're all memorable, not too many familiar faces, but the ones that are feel like they've been naturally implemented into it. And the unique ones that you do meet all have distinctions about them that feel legitimate right? It's not just like this guy's got a giant scar on his eye, so you know he's evil type thing. It's very organic. It makes the story flow a lot better because you sort of know their role, know who they are, and the relations. It's easy to remember. It's easy to keep it into your mind and their motivations when you're playing the game. And it makes it feel a lot more like a movie. It also goes back to the locations that are pretty cool. There are a few that you travel to. I don't want to spoil too much if you haven't played it. There aren't a lot of locations. There are a few. You can travel back to them if you don't get everything. At least I know you can travel back to most of them, the major ones. And it sort of prompts you, like, I think Indiana Jones will say something like, well, better tie up things here, or time to move on. He'll say something along those lines. So you sort of know, I've done all the story missions in this area, I can move on to the next one. But it's not 100% great. So once you've done a few missions, sort of unlock the whole region of the map, then I would focus on side quests if you're trying to get everything done. That's just something to keep in mind, because I find it really annoying in games when you just sort of are taken out of an area without any warning and then plopped into a new one and you can't go back or something like that. Here they kind of tell you you can go back, sort of, so don't have to feel like it's you missed something, because you can go back and do it. Because a lot of those things too are going to be like skill books and stuff that you'll find that, allow you to unlock different levels, which are pretty important. So you're going to want to spend the time to get them, if just for that reason alone, even if you're not trying to platinum the game. Those are well worth collecting because they can be some pretty ridiculous effects that you can get. And a lot of them that I've found naturally are ones that like add the locations of other collectibles on the map. So they're much easier to find. You don't have to do really any investigation. I found them at a point in time naturally where I'd already found most of them. So I was like, okay, well, thank you. I feel rewarded for doing this. Like, I put in the time to explore things that looked odd or looked off, like something could be hidden there, and I was rewarded with it. It's also all those things you pick up give you a little bit of experience. So they did a very good job, because it's a major pet peeve of mine with games. They did a very good job of making the collectibles worth it to go get, because at the very least, you get a tiny bit of experience. Typically, it's more than that, but at the very least, every single thing you pick up does give you a tiny boost to a skill that you can unlock. All that being said, the game is very good. So the combat's very good, right? Very familiar to Wolfenstein, so if you play those games, you'll pick it up lickety-split. Nothing is too crazy or unfamiliar compared to other games. The puzzle solving and the movement isn't too complex, but it's very rewarding to do it on your own. You do not need to search things online to unlock the puzzles. I will say it will make a huge difference to have your phone or a piece of paper and a pen ready while you're playing, just to scribble down notes, because you'll have to switch back and forth between items you found to solve a puzzle or something. And it saves a lot of time. But I can understand people don't like that a lot. Like, you're playing the game, you only want to be able to do it in the game. But still, take that for what you will. That can be a positive to some, that can be a negative to some. But the puzzles aren't anything crazy hard, so you never really have to worry about getting stumped. My biggest advice, if you are stumped on something, literally take a step back with your character in the game, because I often found myself unlocking something that was out of view behind me. And so I just needed to literally turn around and go click that, and it would unlock the door or whatever. So that's really the only advice I have. Pretty much anybody can solve it. I feel like they're about middle school difficulty. So I think anybody could solve them, but they're very rewarding once you do solve them. So as I said, with not that many negatives, it's curious to me why this game isn't talked about more, because it's done very well. It feels like one of the best movie to game adaptations. Like, period. It's incredible. If you are a fan of Indiana Jones, you're going to love this game. It does a great job with it. At its core, yeah, I can see it feels like Wolfenstein gameplay, but it doesn't feel like a Wolfenstein game in any kind of way. So what are the negatives? It's really expensive and it's really short. That's, which feel minor, but they're not, because you're pretty much going to play this game. I feel like most people are going to play it for maybe 15 to 20 hours. You'll get a lot of stuff done. You'll get most of the game done, and you'll beat the main story, and you'll probably be satisfied. There's really no replay value. If you try to platinum thing, online it said it'll take about 40 hours, I think. So that's $70. And there is DLC for the game, so $70 does not include the DLC. It's just the base game. And at most, you're going to get 40 hours out of it if you do literally everything there is to do in the base game. Realistically, it's probably going to be 15 to 20. That is just way too much money. And it's so expensive because you are paying for IP a lot more than you are for a puzzle game, if that makes sense, or a game that's centered around puzzle solving, right? You can find a lot of them for a lot cheaper that have way more puzzles, period, or have way more difficult ones, or have way more options when puzzle solving. So that is why nobody really talks about it, because you can't say it's bad. You just say, yeah, it's really good, but it's $70. It's just too much. It wouldn't be as good without the IP, because that's the thing. If you had the same kind of game, character didn't look like Harrison Ford, didn't say Indiana Jones on it, people would be like, this is a kind of mediocre puzzle game, right? Nobody would buy it for $70, period. So you kind of need that. You need a major studio to make it look good, because it has to look believable. It has to make you feel like you're in the movie universe, right? So you kind of need that heavyweight graphics for it to work. So before you buy the game, you should know that that's what a lot of the price tag comes down to. The game is not bad. It's just very expensive for how little amount of time can be spent playing it. Because of that, in my final review, I gave this game an 8 out of 10. The game is very good. It looks incredible, but it's just too short. The best summary I came up with, outside of it's Indiana Jones Wolfenstein that you'll find, is if you're an Indiana Jones fan, you're going to love this game. If you like puzzle games, you're only going to like this game. You can check out my article in the link below, or go to our website, offtheshelfmedia.com, for more reviews and articles on all things media and a more in-depth look on this review here. Be sure to like and subscribe, and if you're new to the channel, you can find us on social media as well, with the same names. Thanks for watching. Till next time.